As many of you know, and perhaps have been experiencing for yourselves, these past few months have been Little League season in many parts of America. For a few years before the pandemic, I assistant coached or co-coached T-ball and then minors, which is the 7 to 10-year-olds where I live. And of course, then last spring, baseball, along with so many other things, was canceled. So this season, with 2 kids in T-ball and 1 in the minors, I got that email that said, "Hey, do you want to coach?" And my response was, "I will assistant coach, or if you really, really need me, then I can head coach." And it may come as no surprise that they really, really needed me. And I ended up coaching 2 teams this year, co-coaching a T-ball team with a friend, and then head coaching a minors team with a local volunteer. I came into it reluctant at best. T-ball is easy. It's an hour on Saturdays with kids who mainly don't really grasp the game, and then you're done. Minors is a bit more complicated. These kids care. They're old enough to know what winning and losing really means. They get frustrated. And with the minors, we had 2 practices a week for an hour and a half each, 2 hours on Sunday, or Saturday rather, for practice and then the game. You have to make lineups, deal with kids' disappointment that they can't play certain positions. They just want to play first base, even though they can't catch the ball. And then there's the communication to parents. It's a lot of work, is what I'm saying. A lot of hours, a lot of emotional investment, and a lot of thought time. But I have to tell you, as reluctant as I was when we played our last game, and I was thanking the children for their effort all season, I got choked up. For 15 months now, almost exactly 15 months here in the Northeast, we have been under restrictions, lockdowns, general quarantining that meant fewer people in our lives, fewer activities, less joy, to be honest. As reluctant as I was, I now keep saying that this season of baseball was exactly the thing I didn't know I needed. I would never have guessed that coaching a dozen kids who hadn't played ball in 2 years was the thing to make me feel right as the world opens up again. But it was. They built a community. They learned first how to win with grace and kindness, and then how to lose with composure and commitment. It may seem small to us grown-ups, but 3 months of effort and challenge and change for kids this age is no small thing. They learned to weather the storm together with me and with the other coach and the parent volunteers. By the end of the season, they were taking the deep breaths that I practiced with them, just as we practice them here together, in through the nose, out through the mouth. By the end of the season, after a game, win or lose, they were hanging out to play together in pickup games in the outer reaches of the field while the next teams took the diamond. By the end of the season, they were sitting and chatting with me like we'd known each other for years. And if this sounds a bit like a love letter to my team this year, I'll be honest, it kind of is one, because they were awesome. They listened, they tried hard every time. They displayed excellent sportspersonship and team spirit. They were quiet, a quiet bunch of kids, at least at the beginning, and I'm loud enough for all, 14 of us. But nearly every one of them showed up to every practice. They were present, even if quiet at first, they were present to and for each other. And that was how they built community. They showed up for each other day after day after day. Our uniform this season was red. We were the red team, and they chose for themselves the name Blazing Phoenix back at the very beginning of the season. The phoenix, of course, is that mythological bird that regenerates in cycles, sometimes in a flame from the ashes out of which it rises. That name might have charted a season of loss, leading to a glorious rise at the end. But our story was the opposite in terms of the game itself. We came out of the regular season with the best record in the league, and then we bit it in the playoff game. Yet the name still makes sense to me. It was the right name. This name was proposed by a 4th grader who likely had been reading about myths or had been reading Harry Potter. And the name came to mean something for me. I didn't like losing, and neither did the kids, but This was a season of rising again, a season of redemption. Not redemption by winning baseball games, but redemption through relationship and through the strengthening of heart and spirit, through the finding once again of joy. This was a season of rising again, coming out of small spaces and small circles and finding our way back to wide community, to play and to joy. A season like this is special, but not entirely unique. These are seasons that come over and over in our lives. The cycles of human living always bring moments in which the phoenix rises blazingly from the fire. These are seasons that reaffirm our power, deepen our experience of the world, strengthen our ties to one another, and remind us of what is possible. Today is the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the beginning of summer. Of course, we know it means that starting tomorrow, the light gets less with each passing day. Tomorrow we begin the slow march toward winter, but today we bask in the light here in the Northern Hemisphere. We embrace this moment that signals the season of play and joy. School's about to end, camps roaming free are about to begin. The outdoors is calling to us. This is the culmination of that yearly built-in season of rising that begins with those first green shoots in springtime. And this year, the season of rising has been particularly poignant. These past few months, as the vaccination rate has increased and the infection rate has decreased, as we've seen our government stabilize, as we have watched the sun rise higher in the sky, stay later into the evening, come up hopefully each morning, earlier each day by minutes, we have also watched each other come out. For each of us, this process has been different and it will continue to be different. We've said for 15 months now that it's all about risk tolerance, that each of us calculates for ourselves how at risk we are and how much risk we are willing to put up with, how much we are willing to risk the vision of our lives that we hold, how much we are willing to risk each other and our children as the pandemic continues in various ways. But whether with small steps or giant leaps, this has been a season of coming out into the world again, as we have become both more informed about COVID and more collectively protected against it. And as we reopen and move out into the world, of course, many questions remain. Will we cling to behaviors and patterns that have kept us safe for 15 months? Will we go back to the way things were? Will we step forward into the changes that have been wrought? From the beginning, I have said that I didn't want to go back, in a certain way at least. I don't want to go back to our culture's normal way of being ruled by a fear of scarcity, led by a focus on production rather than process, individualism rather than community. As we enter a new phase of this pandemic, we have to realize that, as a dear friend said to me the other day, there really is no going back. We've been changed in unalterable ways as individuals and communities and a nation. We've been changed by loss. We've been changed by trauma. Our eyes have opened to new possibilities for ways to connect, new ways of offering each other grace in the world. We've learned more about time and what is precious and about what it means to connect or not be able to connect with this earth and its creatures, with our families and our friends. We have, hopefully, in new ways, learned the value of community. And all along the way, we've said we have choices about how we face those changes and those new learnings, choices about what we will become, choices about what we'll do with our one wild and precious life. Just as Mary Oliver asks us to consider in those famous lines from the poem, The Summer Day. Mary Oliver, beloved by so many UUs, was a master of laying bare the intimate connection between nature and spiritual longing. In this brief poem, she describes beautifully that grasshopper, and then the language turns. She writes, I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Our second reading by Eric Danielson plays with the same idea. Danielson reviews a day of writing, playing the air guitar, arm wrestling, showering, making love, and in the end, he tells us that he told his friend, "Over the course of the day, I sighed something like 32 times. I pray without ceasing." I'm aware that prayer means different things to each of you, and maybe it means nothing at all. But these poems have been speaking to me these weeks as we have watched our lives shift again. As change keeps coming and the solid things remain the earth beneath our feet and the relationships we pour our love and energy into. If a prayer is an external expression of hope, of vision, of love, then perhaps there is no better prayer than the attentive living, deeply, earnestly, eagerly, and well of our own lives. And perhaps more than anything, as we move through more change and challenge, what we need is to expand that type of prayer, that praying into our lives, giving to ourselves and to others even more of that grace and compassion that the past 15 months has taught us. Offering empathy as we each navigate the new world in our own way. Coming out into community with a conscious desire to build it and deepen it. Taking each moment as an opportunity for connection and for love, understanding each sigh as a love letter to existence. All spring, I've gone to the field in mud and rain and sunshine and witnessed children growing and learning and adapting and becoming. Witnessed them creating community. Yesterday, I played a game of baseball with other coaches, feeling the leather glove on my hand, the harsh smack of the ball on my bat, and the dust beneath my feet. Yesterday, my children laid down on the grass beneath a tree and watched the leaves and felt the sun and knew the presence of the solid earth and blue sky above their heads. Yesterday, I watched my home community cheering and living, laughing, loving, finding joy in a simple game and in being together and in dreaming of a summer filled with pickup games, filled with play. All year, I have watched you be present to each other, online, outside on walks, through emails and cards and phone calls and porch visits. I have watched you pray into your lives. Laugh, think, worry, make choices, face the future, love, all through change and challenge. These are the prayers we need, the prayers of living in the world, the hopeful determination in the face of difficult circumstances that declares there is beauty to be found always, joy to be found, and that the season of rising will always come. Change is inevitable. It's a cliche, but it's true. It's one thing we can really count on. Change in the seasons, change in our relationships, change in our lives. There'll be those around us who roll more easily with the shifting sands. Those around us who hold so tight that damage is done. And those who find a way through the middle, feeling the pain but doing their best to move forward. Just as there will always be seasons of change and loss and pain, and we will respond to them in our own way, there will always be seasons of redemption when we rise from the ashes and take those first steps toward new life. And often, those seasons of change and pain and those seasons of redemption are one and the same. If we let them, the cycles of our lives, those that we participate in yearly with the earth, those that come to us because of circumstance, and those we choose to create, the cycles of our lives can help us find a way back to ourselves. They can help us find our own wellspring of courage to meet the world before us. They can help us recover joy. May this summer be filled with the prayer of everyday living, bringing us change and opportunities for charting a new path, bringing us connections to ourselves, our communities, and to this earth, bringing us abundant time for play, and bringing us joy unbounded. So may it be.